so also because we have only half an hour. Do you hear? Okay, I will run it through. Okay. So the music-based assessment of individualized cognitive and motor functioning was clinically developed by me many years ago and has been changed over the years. Actually, it was in a center for children with learning disabilities. Today, I will describe it as it currently looks. Its aim is to differentiate between children and adolescents who have learning disabilities and those with normal learning functioning. Do I have to repeat a definition of a learning disability? No, thank you. Okay. I'd like to open my presentation with a video clip that shows one relatively complicated task from this assessment, mbicmf. A 9-year-old child with normal learning functioning plays the autoharp compared to a child with a learning disability who performs the same task. Try to pay attention to the differences between the two. לא, לא צריך. Okay, it's a terrible song, a very old one, but the intention was to see how he can cope with changing the chords all the time. And also it has been taken many years ago, so that's the reason. Now the other child. זה ארוך נורא, רגע, אני מעבירה. Have you noticed some differences between the two? Oh, it's like a loop. Have you noticed some differences between the two? Mm-hmm. Yes. More things.
The understanding of the instruction. To hold on, to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very complicated task, but when you don't have a learning disability, you do it like this. Okay. More things. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, dyslexia. He has dyslexia. Okay. Okay. So here is an example. Just a second. Here is an example of how the music looks like. You can see here are the chords. In Hebrew, it's from right to left, unfortunately. So these are the chords, and I changed the color of when you have to change the chord. I changed the color of the chord. And every line like this means that you have to press on the AM chord and then strum once. Or if you have two, so it means you hold the AM down and then you strum twice with the left hand. So it's quite complicated, but it's not complicated when you don't have a learning disability. I did it with hundreds of people. Okay. Now, let's have a look at the activity analysis of this task. I was taught to do it from my colleagues who are occupational therapists. So, we relate to the position. You have to sit in order to function with this instrument. Each hand has a different way of coping, not only motorically, but also perceptually. We will see it in a minute, as you saw. Then the left hand, use of palm and forehand. A repetitive movement. You have to choose between this, or you do like this and this. I don't care, but be consistent throughout the task. Directions. It means you have to remember if you decide, for example, to go from here to here, you have to follow this. From close to the body, out. And it's gross motor skills. And you have to estimate the distance, which means that you have to strum not only up till here, but all the way through, because otherwise if you stop here, we miss the whole acoustic, thing. The chord, actually, yes. Okay, the right hand. Press the buttons. Fine motor skills. By the way, you can change hands. If you are lefty, there is a way to do it, but I'm just relating to most of the people. Okay, so fine motor skills. Finger separations, you have to do with your right hand like this. And then pressure intensity, if you don't press hard enough, the chord will not sound well enough. And I also have things to when I start working with them, I'm doing all kinds of things in order to press more intensely, but not in this lecture. Okay, perceptually. To identify the graphic symbol, it can be colors, everything, numbers. Matching symbol to button. On the buttons, you can see the chords are written, actually. Vertical eye-hand coordination, which means that there is a time delay between reading and playing. You have to do like this all the time when you play any instrument. Many instruments if you read something. Short-term memory, just to memorize, to remember a very, very short time what you saw and then find it. Continuity, to hear the song. And then the coordination, what we call opposing movements. Every hand is doing something really different. Left hand play numbers, strums, and right hand switches between buttons. And then the delayed response, pressing the button as long as the strumming continues. If you take your right hand before you finished strumming, the chord is, how do you say it, out of tune, whatever, yeah. Attention span and concentration, of course, if you lack attention span and concentration, you will have a problem. And I don't expect to play this song according to the original song, but people who don't have any difficulty with this immediately play it like originally. Okay. Now, we will look now at another task. The task is to synchronize with different tempi. First, you will see the child with normal learning functioning. אתה רואה, זה לא נכנס לתיקייה, גיא, שום דבר, בגלל זה. לא, כי אני ידעתי למה אני לא רוצה לשלוח, כי אני כל כך מכירה את המטריאל. I know this material so well, so there are always problems if I don't do it with my... Okay, normal, here.
אז אני אפעיל את המטרונום על מהירות מסוימת, תקשיבי קודם, עד שממש ככה תרכשי לעצמך את המהירות, וכשתרצי, תתחילי לעקוב עם האצבע מההתחלה עד הסוף.
Okay, she has this girl, I did it awkward with my smartphone, so, but it doesn't matter. The child has to first to listen to the rhythm and try to incorporate it, and then when she feels that she mastered it, she has to start walking with her finger from the beginning. There is an arrow here until the end, okay?
טוב, בדיוק לפי הקצב. יופי. אוקיי, עכשיו בוא נעשה מהירות קצת יותר גבוהה.
Now with a higher rhythm.
מדויק, הכי חשוב. יופי. אז אני אפעיל את המטרונום על מהירות מסוימת.
This is great what she did. From my experience with many children and adolescents with learning disabilities, I found that many of them lack the ability to synchronize, especially with the high tempi. So she's amazing. Okay. Now look at the child with the learning disability. Same age. This is older, the page that you'll see, so you'll see some drawings of some objects that have only one syllable, so don't relate to this, it's just... But it's the same task, actually. אוי, זה משהו אחר, this is something else, just a second. רגע, הנה. This is okay. Okay, now see his level. He can listen as much as he wants, and then at a certain point he has to start. Okay, what did you see? Besides of going backwards, never mind, but what did you see? Just a second. Okay, what did you see? Yeah, also. What else? First of all, he becomes tired when it goes on and on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, it's not precise enough, especially when it goes on and on. It's not precise enough. And when I check it, then I write to myself that until, for example, 1/4 in music equals, I don't know, 150, it's okay, but above this, it doesn't work anymore. And what we find in everyday life is that they, for example, these children, they cannot, they don't work efficiently enough because they need more time and, you know, all the consequences from this.
Yeah. First diagnosis and then you look if it's okay, or did you know about
I didn't know anything, but no, let's put it this way. Always I don't know anything, and by purpose I ask not to know anything. Unless there is something that I need to know. For example, if the child is under medication or something, of course. But this child with the learning disabilities, he was already treated in a center for children with learning disabilities, but I had to put my input and to say how I can help him. And at that time, many years ago, I had this job of motoric and cognitive functioning through music, which wasn't at all working on the emotional problems. So it has history, this diagnosis, this evaluation.
the reason, I mean, not being so exact, doing some information, would be also because emotional problems.
Sure,
Or like into ADHD.
sure. Yeah, but it's what we call cross domains. I'm looking at the same tasks, at the same skills from in different tasks, so I can see if it repeats. And also, of course, it can relate to emotional problems. But I have so much experience with this, so I can differentiate. But that's another thing. I will say a few words about this.
And also, I'm thinking about personal, because my husband hasn't got the
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
He's an engineer and he's doing a PhD, so I'm thinking about could possibly be just not having it, having the music track.
Yes, I think yes. I think also once I taught this evaluation for people who came from Africa, and there was that woman with a PhD. She sat near the piano. I asked her to do one of the tasks in this evaluation, and then she plays with one hand, and I saw the other hand under. She did the task, and under the piano, her left hand was all like this, what we call in Hebrew synkinesiot, I don't know, synkinesia, whatever. Synkinesia, it's side movements of the other side. So there was a problem in, for that in movement separation. So, and I didn't say a word because probably she compensates somehow. And she has a PhD. Maybe her PhD is not like the PhD in Israel, but still she has a PhD. And I think we have to see how it hurts her level of functioning during everyday life. I think this is what's important. And I really try to see if there is a correlation between what I find and how this, exactly, and especially in learning processes. So we have to be really careful with the things so that we, exactly. Okay. These are only 2 tasks from this assessment. Due to lack of time, I can't show you more video clips, but I do have here a list of all the tasks. What inspired me years ago when building this assessment was Dr. Chava Sekel's model, the developmental integrative model in music therapy. Chava is one of the founders of music therapy in Israel. Her model consists of a synthesis of diverse theories elaborated over decades by prominent specialists, as well as the views developed by her in the course of her extensive empirical and professional experience as an occupational therapist as well as a music therapist. Also for me, it's very important to show this assessment because I know that many, at least music therapists, relate too much sometimes to the emotional sides and they forget that you must see the person in a holistic view. Many years of clinical experience using my assessment have shown me that it differentiates well between children and adolescents with learning disabilities and those with normal learning functioning, according to reports of educational staff. Recently, this assessment was used with 10 refugee children from Eritrea who hadn't yet acquired Hebrew and for whom there were significant cultural differences. The findings were a great asset in giving the instructional staff a more complete picture of the children's capabilities and helping to develop a customized plan for working with each child. If we have 1 minute at the end, I will tell you something about this. I'd like to say a few words about the areas of this assessment, its benefits, as well as thoughts about future research. Okay, the assessment domains are, wait, we'll go to, okay, gross motor skills such as hand dominance, muscle tone, crossing the midline. Fine motor skills such as finger separation, strumming with fingers. Sensory skills, integration of visual, motor, auditory input, toleration of strumming the autoharp with fingers, nonverbal auditory perception. Cognitive and academic skills such as following directions, short-term recall, decision-making, matching colors or symbols, identifying letters. And the procedure is as follows. Prescribed activities which can be tailored for use on a variety of levels and ages. Musical task is explained and sometimes partly demonstrated by the therapist. The client's output is assessed. Usually I'm not writing anything during the assessment, only right afterwards. The assessment is summarized and the client's strengths, abilities, and needs are specified. In addition, recommendations for treatment are provided. Video recording is recommended for analysis until proficiency is gained with the technique. Anyhow, here are the benefits of this assessment. It may be used with a variety of populations, including people who are not fluent in the prevailing language, people who have difficulties with their mother tongue, people who are reluctant to engage in verbal interactions, and people who demonstrate an inconsistency between their verbal and performance skills. The client does not need any musical background. The tool can be adapted to each client's performance level. This is a dynamic assessment rather than a static one. It assesses potential rather than the current situation, which is very important. It's inexpensive because they pay me, you know, for a music therapist. It's nothing. It involves multisensory stimulation by the therapist and multisensory responses by the client, thus increasing the amount of information derived from the client's assessment. It's a pleasant experience which motivates the client's participation and increases the likelihood of meaningful data. It requires only 1 hour to administer. In case of attention deficits, the assessment can be divided into 2 or 3 parts and administered at different times. A number of skills are also cross-domain skills that appear in more than one area, thus increasing internal validity. This assessment is not standardized by age or age range. Currently, only me, unfortunately, because of my extensive experience with children and adolescents with learning disabilities, can say whether a problem exists and whether it's a mild or severe. What needs to be done now is to build a Likert scale so that every therapist will be able to rate the client's performance and then study the inter-rater reliability. Anyhow, the clinical results of this assessment strongly suggest the potential value of future research. At first, I thought of validating it and establishing norms. However, at this stage, a more modest starting point may be to focus on handwriting, because this assessment includes skills which relate to writing. Writing rhythm in seconds, spatial planning on a paper, and accuracy, how accurate the graphic symbols are. And the research questions I have been thinking about recently are, does this assessment relate to handwriting difficulties? And also, which of the skills in this assessment explain writing difficulties? I'd like to look for correlations between some skills which are assessed here and these same skills in children who have dysgraphia, which has not resulted from a linguistic background. For example, spelling mistakes, focusing only on characteristics that relate to illegible handwriting, because there is also impaired handwriting with poor spelling. I think it will be interesting to look at the results and to be continued. Thank you.